Good, okay. Um, I don't think we have everybody here yet, do we, staff?
Hi, Chair Berger. No, we're missing 4 commissioners.
Okay. Lee Booth, when we usually have the public commenters, thank you for coming, by the way, and Kimberly Copeland and Patrick Blood and Kevin Burton. Thank you, guys. We usually have the people who are going to be doing public speaking not have their video on until they speak. Cool.
Chair Berger, I believe Commissioner Balbone is connecting to audio, and then I believe
Okay.
all 7 of you are here.
Is my background the correct way?
Yes, Chair.
Okay. Okay, it looks like we have everybody here. Is that correct, staff?
Commissioner Balbone, can you hear us?
I can. I'm
Okay.
trying to get my camera to work. Bear with me. I am here though.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Is it okay if the chair starts the meeting?
Absolutely. Don't let me distract anybody.
Thank you.
Okay, let's call the meeting to order. This is November 5th, 2021, Public Safety Special Meeting. Pledge of Allegiance, I'll say it. I pledge allegiance to the flag for the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Commissioner Balbone,
Present.
Chair Berger,
Present.
Commissioner Hallman,
Present.
Commissioner Oliver,
Present.
Commissioner Roman,
Present.
Vice Chair Roche,
Present.
Commissioner Soon-Shiong.
Present.
Okay. Adjournment requests. No adjournment requests? Approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
We had Vice Chair Roche made the motion and Commissioner Oliver seconded. Approval of the minutes.
Chair, let's do a quick roll call on the agenda, please. Commissioner Balbone,
Aye.
Chair Berger,
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Commissioner Roman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Roche,
Aye.
Commissioner Soon-Shiong,
You're on mute, Commissioner Soon-Shiong.
Aye.
Approval of the minutes,
So moved.
I'll second.
moved by Vice Chair Roche, seconded by Commissioner Balbon. Roll call.
Commissioner Balbon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Berger, Chair Berger,
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver,
Aye.
Commissioner Roman,
Aye.
Vice Chair Roche,
Aye.
Commissioner Soon-Shiong.
Aye.
Unfinished business. Commissioner comments, sorry. No, wait a minute. Public comments. Public comments. Do we have any public commenters?
Yes, Chair. We have a few who have signed up ahead of time, and then we will take any additional comments that are here. We're going to start with Lee Booth, followed by Patrick Blood, followed by Kevin Burton, and then we will go to the Zoom room as well. So Lee Booth, you have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you so much. So my name is Lee. I'm a writer at Environmental Progress, which is a policy research organization that specializes in energy, climate, and homelessness. My comments today regard homelessness in Los Angeles, and I have submitted a 2-page written version of my remarks that contain sources and additional information. The homelessness problem is driven mainly by drug addiction and severe mental illness, not poverty and housing prices. In Los Angeles, 72% of the homeless are unsheltered, and according to a UCLA study, 78% of LA's unsheltered homeless have a mental illness, and 75% have substance abuse problems. Rising rents do not doom cities to mass homelessness. Between 2011 and 2019, Chicago's typical rents increased 24%, yet homelessness in that city declined 20%. In Houston, rents rose 32%, but homelessness fell 57%. Housing First is not the solution to homelessness because it does not address the causes of homelessness. In groundbreaking research, a team of Harvard experts found that after 10 years, just 12% of homeless individuals given permanent supportive housing remained housed. The strength of this study is its duration. Many studies that show Housing First succeeding only examine the first 2 years of the program. Additionally, Housing First has also been shown to not improve health outcomes. Fortunately, there are proven solutions to the homelessness, drug addiction, and severe mental illness crises. In 4 randomized controlled trials, homeless people were given furnished apartments or were allowed to keep them unless they failed a drug test, at which point they were sent to stay in a shelter. One of these studies found that 65% of participants completed the program, a high rate of success. The other 3 studies found moderate to high rates of completion. Open drug scenes plague Los Angeles, but other cities show the way forward. 5 European cities, Amsterdam, Zurich, Vienna, Frankfurt, and Lisbon, all successfully dealt with their open drug scenes in similar ways. The police broke up open-air drug scenes, and health workers were on hand to offer methadone, treatment, and shelter to addicts. The police dispersed gatherings of more than 4 or 5 users, but did not treat private use as a crime. Officers ticketed violators of public drug use laws, and if users did not pay their fines, which was frequent, courts ordered arrests and sentenced individuals to follow a treatment plan or face incarceration. Several of these cities also offered psychiatric care to users. What does this mean for West Hollywood and Los Angeles? City dollars should be spent on contingent housing, and police should partner with social workers to break up open-air drug scenes. Adoption of these policies and others that I discuss in my written remarks would reverse the rise of homelessness in West Hollywood and Los Angeles. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Lee Booth. And your comments, everybody who is on here and the public, all of the comments and the submitted documents are in the agenda packet. Okay, staff, do we have the next.
Yes, and Chair, thank you for mentioning that. So since this is a special meeting, there's a special link on the city's website with this packet. And instead of a live link for public comment, the written comments are at the end of the PDF that is posted. So it's a little bit different than how it would look for a normal meeting. And on the Public Safety Commission page on WehoTV.org, there is the full PDF for this meeting today. Chair, your next public speaker is Patrick Blood.
Okay, Patrick.
Good afternoon, commissioners. First and foremost, apologies. I clearly had a bleaching incident here. We'll discuss that later. Patrick Ryan Blood here, proud resident of the beautiful city of West Hollywood. I join you today and I wanted to thank you for hearing me at the last meeting as I came to you with a recommendation from the Disabilities Advisory Board. I'm joining you here today as a individual resident to urge you to discuss that recommendation made by the DAB regarding the dockless mobility program and the repeat offenders who are discarding e-bikes, e-scooters, causing Americans with Disability Act violations. It kind of blows my mind on occasion. No matter what meeting, organization, even governmental entities often tell me as a disabled person, a disabled resident, a person living with disabilities, that folks just didn't think of it. Think of it being people with disabilities. People with disabilities are not an afterthought. They need to be we need to address these issues head on. And so I urge your commission to take up this matter with heart and with zealous advocacy when you go to City Council. City Council on Wednesday moved their discussion of the expansion of the dockless mobility program from that meeting until February. That is more than enough time for all of us to come together, find a plan that City Council can then implement. And that implementation might be enforcement, whether it's law enforcement, more foot patrol, or forcing these companies to disclose the information of who these repeat offenders are. It's my understanding at this time, these companies refuse to do so. If they want a service in our city where public safety issues are being raised, I think that we should have a little bit more say and oversight on that. So I'm very hopeful with this zealous advocacy that your commission will discuss this and put forth an action plan for City Council for rigorous enforcement. Now, given the ADA has been in effect for over 31 years now, this is really something we need to address so that our city is accessible for everybody. Is that we are a city that is proud to say that we welcome everyone, and yet there are so many residents who are blocked from their right of passage and their ability to get around the city. Now, I'm going to be listening to the rest of your meeting, and I do have a separate comment under 9A, which I will make at that time. So for now, thank you, and I will see you soon.
Thank you
Chair?
very much.
Sorry.
Yes.
Corey. Your next public speaker.
Thank you, Chair. Okay.
Chair, your next public.
Before you move to that, staff, we want to capture when these public commenters, I don't know if you're taking that in your notes, exactly what they asked us to do. When we get through the public comment, I want to briefly read through those, if we can, so we know that so they know that we've heard them. Okay, go ahead to the next public speaker.
We will have Kevin Burton, followed by Yola Dore, followed by Sid Miller. So Kevin.
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm Kevin Burton. I'm a resident of West Hollywood, and I actually signed up to speak under item 9A. Is this the best point for me to make those comments?
I'm sorry, Kevin. We can wait for 9A. We'll be there shortly.
Very good.
Thank you. Turning to Yola Dore, please.
Are you ready for me, Chair? Are you
Yes.
ready?
We're ready.
Okay.
Just a second.
Okay.
Before you go, everybody who is a public speaker, please turn off your camera until we ask you to speak. It's just a little distracting, and that's how we usually do it. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, Yola Dore, 30-plus year resident of the east side of West Hollywood. Good afternoon, Chair, Commissioners, and staff. I'm coming to you today as an individual, and I want to speak to you about something in your minutes, the kiosk that you've recommended for the east side to be manned by block. I am totally against having a kiosk manned by block. We need on this east side a substation or a kiosk type operation that is similar to the one at the Grove, which is manned by LAPD. We need boots on the ground on the east side. Crime has increased. A number of years back, we were promised a substation, and I want that substation here. It would actually help the sheriffs to take their little break, do their paperwork, etc. at the substation. There is parking at Plummer Park that kind of puts it equidistant from the beginning of the east side all the way to La Brea. So it gives them a little mobility in there while covering us. Crime has increased. Personally, near where the murder took place, I experienced a criminal thing from a person who decided to expose themselves and harass me by the Trader Joe's there. I was horrified, terrified, and scared. I am a disabled senior, for those of you that do not know me. We are at risk because the crime has increased and we thus become a target. Also, I've duly noted that domestic violence has increased in some of the area where I live. We are an LGBTQ community. We are a diverse community. We need protection for everyone, not just part of the city. So don't forget, our east side needs you to make a recommendation. Please give us that substation that's been in the draw works for many years. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Yola Dore, for taking the time, and thank you for all of the years that you have come to the commission and given input. Staff, can you make sure that that is marked down, earmarked, that they want us to look into that as well? We'll read back your comments, everybody who is public commenting. And we, just so you know, we probably won't start with the things that you requested. We're probably going to start with bigger picture, deeper meanings, root causes first, so that you know, but hopefully we can get to the things that you've asked us to weigh in on. Who do we have next?
Chair, we have Sid Miller.
Hey guys, hey everyone, y'all can hear me okay? My internet's a little unstable in my apartment, so I apologize if I skid out. But so I submitted for the commissioners to review an article that I wrote in a national publication that's led by Dr. Naomi Wolf, The Daily Clout. And it's about vaccine discrimination in West Hollywood. it was really hard for me to put my experience as a conscientious objector on the page with an 800-word limit. And it was exponentially harder for my friend that was featured, that I brainstormed this project with, that shared his story as a survivor of Ed Buck. And so I don't want to go over it now. I hope that you'll just, take the time to sit with that personally. But I bring it up because vaccine passports and restrictions on movement for the unvaccinated are killing us. And I don't have the emotional energy anymore to keep pounding my head against the wall when city council has ignored us. When we bring up these issues, we get vacant, empty stares. And so that's why I'm coming to this group over and over, asking you to specifically raise this issue. And I'll give you some options. I would suggest going to dailyclout.io and looking at their legislative tracker aspect of the website. You can track legislation, and they're tracking legislation that's model legislation for other states to ban vaccine passports. And I would like West Hollywood to take a stand on this and be a true city on a hill, a real beacon of progressive, inclusive values in the truest sense of the word. So that's what I would ideally like. But other options that I would like this body to do realistically are to direct city council to do an internal training for all city officials about how they speak about unvaccinated people, and reorienting this entire approach back towards the tenets of harm reduction, the foundations of harm reduction, which has been, demonstrated over and over in clinical research in public health for decades. These are just truisms that shaming, force, and anything than complete, full voluntary consent is not effective to get the public health outcomes you want. So I also attached for the public record a study that I participated in about how to improve LGBT vaccine access and equity within the LGBT community. And towards the, in the second half of the research study, there's some segments. Basically, the whole gist of that one is that we want community embedded care that goes beyond just the push for vaccinations. That should just be like included as part of a more holistic community care approach. I know West Hollywood is trying to do that, but there's also some points specifically about destigmatizing people's personal health choices.
Chair.
You can't object,
Sorry,
Robert. Sorry, so I'm going to continue. So I would like you guys,
West,
I'm going
your
to
time
continue.
is up. West, hang on. We've got everything. We hear you. We hear you, man. Staff, mark down what he's interested in. West, we cannot direct the council, but we can make a recommendation to council. And we may not get to this tonight, but we hear you, and we're going to read back exactly what you hope to have happen from this body. And hopefully we can weigh in on that. I don't know if we can get to it tonight, but first we're going to try to go over some root causes and bigger picture and see if everybody agrees on those things. And then we're going to move into these other things if we can. Okay. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
And thank you. Staff, do we have any more public speakers?
We've gone through my list. I would ask at this time if anybody's in the Zoom and would like to speak, if you could use the raise hand feature, please. Okay, Chair, I believe you can move to the next item, please.
Okay, commissioner comments. Do we have any commissioner comments? Okay, we're ready to get down to business. Unfinished business 9A, before we start speaking about
Tori,
that,
there are comments.
I want to,
Tori, there are
Chair,
comments.
Yeah, Chair, I'm sorry. I had a comment. I
oh, sorry.
apologize. I don't think
That's
it's on my hand.
okay.
Just quickly, I want to clarify regarding the East Side kiosk that is proposed for Santa Monica and La Brea. So everyone knows that was not initially a recommendation from our commission. This was something that was proposed to council by WeHo East Neighborhood Watch Group before I was appointed to public safety. So this process has been in the works for about a year. Am I correct, staff? Has this been in the process
Yes.
for about a year?
It's been discussed
This is
for
already,
several- It's been discussed for
Go ahead,
several
Stan.
months, Commissioner Holman.
Yeah, so just so for public records, in the community knows, it was not something that we, and correct me if I'm wrong, we did not suggest this as a body, as a commission. So I want everyone to know that. And I'll bring up later, but there also have been numerous discussions regarding a substation on the east side going back to 2016.
okay, Commissioner Hallman, thank you. I should have mentioned that. In fact, I didn't know that before at our last meeting, and we could have saved a lot of time on that. What happened is this has already gone before council. Staff received it. Staff is bringing an amendment back to council. And so that ship has sailed, and council is going to give the thumbs up or the thumbs down. So that east side, we're done with that, with that kiosk here. It's already before council. Okay, Commissioner Oliver.
Commissioner Balbone had her hand up first. Okay, I just literally want to take 10 seconds to say, vaccines are not up for debate in this commission. Vaccines work. We're in a pandemic. I have no interest in taking that up. It's not a controversy unless just because somebody makes it one. And that's all I want to say.
Okay, thank you. If we want to go on to that, the rest of the people have time to weigh in. When you get done speaking, please take your hand icon off. Commissioner Balbone.
So I would like to ensure that we have a follow-up from Wes' comments. And that follow-up is understanding how we are specifically partnering with or asking the Human Services Council to look into the specific needs of the LGBTQ community in terms of issues with access to vaccination and vaccine hesitancy. I don't think that's in our purview, but I do think that we need to make sure it is raised to them as a need in the community. The article, I did read it, and it cited some reasons why that part of our community is more vulnerable. And, you know, I'll go on record saying I am also very pro-vaccination, but I deal with vaccine hesitancy in my day job, and it's real. And I think we do need to take a step to make sure that we look out for the health and safety of everyone. So let's make sure that gets over to them as, you know, something that's been brought to our attention thoughtfully. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Balbone. West, if you can think of it, you don't have to say it now, but when you make a request for us, if you can state why that's in our purview, I think everybody, you have our purview. If you don't, we'll get it to you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that,
okay.
Commissioner Balbone.
Okay. Any more commissioner comments? Okay, staff, can you read what the public commenters wanted, just so they know that we've heard them exactly what they wanted? Can you just briefly read what they all said they wanted from us?
Okay, so Chair, I just want to clarify, I take summary notes. I don't do a transcript. So this is just a summary. This is what you would see in our minutes, if that makes sense. And every month we do summarize public comments in the minutes. And every month those requests, whether it's a traffic signal or stop sign that's fallen over, whatever it is, we do forward that to the appropriate staff for follow-up. Lee Booth spoke regarding housing and homelessness and the issues with housing first. In his opinion, is not a solution to homelessness. Patrick Blood spoke regarding the struggles with people living with disabilities and spoke in support of enforcement so the city is accessible for everyone. Yola Dore spoke against a kiosk staffed by Block and spoke in support of a kiosk staffed by sworn personnel, and also spoke in support of establishing a sheriff's substation on the east side. Sid Miller spoke regarding vaccination, discrimination, and hesitancy in West Hollywood.
Okay, you public commenters, if any of that is not clear what you asked for, please email Kristen and we can read it back again later. Exactly what you requested, okay? So next we are going to go on to 9A, and before we do, I want to I hope that we can try to do this. I don't know if you all have heard of Parkinson's law, which is the adage that you can fit everything in to the allotted time, the time that you set. For me, it generally works if we do that. So we would like to, if we can, end this meeting at 5:30. We want to keep it as concise as possible, shorter if we can. If we hit to 5:30 and it looks like you all still have more things to say, we'll keep going, but let's try to really shoot for 5:30, please, if we can. I think we can do it. Also, we want to start with from those who are here and listening and aren't aware of what we went through in our last meeting. You can look at it on YouTube. We had a very robust conversation, 4.5 hours long, and we discussed a lot of these things. And so what we had come up were people were interested in looking more at the root causes and the deeper problems. And so we wanted to first start with that. I think that's the place we first need to all agree on exactly what those are and exactly what we would like to see happen. And we can start with really broad strokes at the beginning before we start to jump to solutions. So I think if we start there, Kristen has a document. I wish we would have, I don't think she can show it right now, but the document has, and what she's going to do, we practiced ahead of time, but we got this timer on here now and we weren't able to do it. But she's going to take notes and she's going to fill out this table. And the table says the objective. Then it will say how. It will say the data needed to measure effectiveness of that objective and the metrics needed to measure the effectiveness. So if we go that way, I think that we're going to have some tangible, hard results right away, and that we can measure those in the future, regardless of what options that we all decide to recommend to council. After we move through all of those, we can also look at short-term and long-term solutions if we have a combination of different solutions. And then we're going to go through and we're going to weigh in on exactly some of the things that are already in place with council, which are things like, do you guys still all agree? Do you all support the MET teams, the mental evaluation teams? Do you all support the behavioral health crisis unit? Do you all support the kiosks? Those kinds of things. We want to weigh in back on those again and see where you all weigh in on those. And lastly, we will try to prioritize all of the things that we have in the table, and Kristen will read them all back so that we can prioritize for funding. Okay, so those are the kinds of outputs that I think that we're shooting for, and we're going to try to shoot for those. And and get to votes as soon as we can. So is it looks like we have had a good discussion, or even if we don't need to, we'll vote on something right away. Does anybody have any questions or any additions to that approach? Okay. Let's begin and let's try to keep this concise. Oh, and by the way, another thing that we looked through every inch, Vice Chair Roche and I looked through every inch of that video and went through it a lot of times, and we were looking for wastes. And one of the wastes that we saw was people did not feel like they landed their point. And that was my fault because I could have clarified it. So we had people saying their point again, which we already all heard. So what we're going to do is we're going to try to clarify what you said and what you meant, and then that way we only do it one time. Okay.
Chair.
Chair Berger?
Yeah.
When we scheduled this meeting, we were scheduling it, I let it be known to Kristen that I've got a firm commitment at 5:30. So we're already 35 minutes into our 2 hours that we had agreed upon. So I would just want to make that clear up front, and also just say I look forward to an efficient meeting.
Okay, we heard you, and we are going to we're going to shoot for 5:30. Commissioner Roman also has to leave early. I hope we can blow through this stuff with some solid, tangible results from us to City Council faster than that. Okay, who wants to begin? Commissioner Sun Xiang mentioned we are not really addressing the root causes and the root solutions. We had Commissioner Roman mention some of these things won't work because there are some deeper root problems of this. So if either of you guys want to start, we can. We've had some other things happen here as well. Okay, so we have Vice Chair Roche.
Thank you, Chair. Also, Kristen, I thought we had a public comment for this item. Would Kevin Burton like to speak before we dive into this discussion?
Kevin, are you with us still? There you are. Please go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Vice Chair. I was wondering about that. Appreciate it. Again, I'm Kevin Burton, a resident of West Hollywood, and I wanted to speak on this item. Want a brief comment on the kiosk, which apparently you're going to take up again briefly. Also a comment on interactions between public safety officials and the public. Finally, a comment on root causes, which are all interested in from the chair's comments. The kiosks, I just want to briefly say, I had a lot of interaction with security ambassadors at the kiosk in Plummer Park because I live very nearby. When that first went in, it was highly successful. The reason being that it was right there at the location where a problem repeatedly occurred. So anybody who was there to start a problem saw them standing there. And I think that needs to be the case with any new kiosks, such as at La Brea and Santa Monica. It has to be a very visible location so people see that a public safety kind of official is there. And I hope to keep that in mind. In no way precludes a sheriff's substation near Plummer Park, by the way. Second, communications between law enforcement and the public. A few years ago, I had lobbied city council and staff for a crime blotter to be restarted. And now there is a weekly report from the sheriff's department that followed on from my comments at a public meeting, which I think the community finds very valuable. But it reports on what crimes have occurred and whether an arrest was made. But there's no report in the context of the broader public safety apparatus on what follows, such as, are arrestees brought to trial? Are they acquitted or convicted? Are there later arrests made due to investigations sometime after that week. And I think it would be very useful for the community to get such follow-up information. I would request that this commission discuss with city staff and the sheriff's department and other officials how to provide that additional follow-up information to the community on a regular basis. 3, root causes. One of the main problems is a revolving door issue of people who are actually incarcerated or briefly jailed being released back into the community only to commit crimes again. So I would request again this commission, I think in concert with the Human Services Commission, perhaps at a joint commission meeting, which you hold from time to time, discuss not only what services are provided to people who are in a situation characterized by high crime rates by a minority of them, but also people who are returned to the community after incarceration. If it's believed that they will be returning to West Hollywood, which also often happens because we are supportive of these individuals, I would like to hear a
So,
public
Kevin-
conversation what the city does to support those returning in, again,
I can't
perhaps
see
in
the timer.
conversation with the Human Services
Timer's over.
Commission.
Yeah, it's a
Thank
it's a
you
minute
very
over.
much.
Thank
Sorry,
you, Kevin.
Kevin.
Thanks very much. I'm
Thank
finished.
you, Kevin. I'm sorry. I couldn't see the timer, Kevin. I'm sorry. Thank you, Kevin, for all the times you've come and all of the service you do for West Hollywood. Because we are so focused, we can't bullet point all of those. If you could send those bullet points, those 3 things that you mentioned on there to Kristen, we can make sure that we have that in the public record. Otherwise, I'm afraid we might lose some of that value you just gave us. Okay.
So Chair,
So the next,
our next public speaker on this item is Patrick Blood.
All right. Hi, commissioners. Once again, I'm going to keep my comments extremely brief because I know you want to dive into all of the matters. I just wanted to say that, although our city has expanded training for officers when they respond to domestic violence incidents and calls, as well as incidents that may have a mental health issue, I think it is a wise use of budgetary resources and time for all of our officers who serve within our city to receive that robust training. Lieutenant Mulder at the last meeting of your commission did speak to a little bit about how our officers are trained, but I think that there's always room for improvement, and it would be a good use of time, resource, and budget. So I urge your commission to keep the MET team, to keep officers trained on how to deal with domestic violence incidents, and please take that to sincere heart because it's something that affects so many within our community. Thank you.
thank you, Patrick. And if you feel like you want to email that to us, exactly what you just said, those exact points you want. Okay, we have another public speaker. Chelsea Byers, thank you for coming.
Thank you, and I'm gonna keep my camera off for the time being. I'm just not in a great place. I'm actually in a car, but I did want to just make a few comments and say thank you for taking the time to have a conversation about root causes. I feel like we're often in a reaction position, and this is truly thinking about thoughtful and appropriate response. I think about the studies and statistics that really show that majority of interactions that our law enforcement officers end up dealing with are, 70% not crime related, and yet law enforcement and police and the sheriff's department are truly have become, in most folks' minds, a capture mechanism for sort of all of the problems of society. And I think about what it means to manage appropriate response. And I think this conversation about root causes, about really trying to sort out what type of data and how we can better ensure accountability to the root causes that are creating problems in our community is an earnest and really admirable mission. And I'm going to continue to listen in on this call today and be with you throughout this journey, because I'm looking forward to this discussion unfolding. And I just want to make an add that as a human services commissioner in the city, I am constantly thinking about how we can address crime and prevent it from the outset. How do we better address human needs and interpersonal conflict from the outset, so that this can stay a conversation around social services and not about punishment, about how we manage crime. Hopefully we can manage it before it occurs. So thank you so much for this discussion and appreciate the time.
Thank you, Chelsea. Very good comments. Vice Chair Roche.
Thank you, Chair. I would be happy to begin. However, I'm not familiar with this chart that you're speaking about. I know you just, is there a way we can visually see it? Is there a way?
I'm going to work on trying to post that by joining the Zoom from my other computer, but Tori did send it. We did send it to all of you. So it's a chart, basically, what's the objective?
Okay.
How do you want to accomplish it?
Okay.
And then what are the data and metrics needed to measure its effectiveness? So like, for example, you could start with MET. What's the objective surrounding MET? More MET, same MET, less MET, and then how would you accomplish where you want to head? And then how are you going to measure its effectiveness?
Okay, so I'm happy to get started. I'm going to start with block by block. And though I do have data, I would like the commissioner's support around possible metrics, etc. So let me just, go ahead and share with you my position with block by block at this time. I had an opportunity to review the September sheriff's report, and I noticed that there was 1,769 calls to the sheriff's department for service. And out of those calls, 138 were categorized as Part 1 crimes, and 182 were categorized as Part 2 crimes. So that's a total of 320 crimes out of 1,769 calls, right? So that leaves us 1,449 calls where a crime report was not written. So these calls range a variety of reasons, but essentially around general livability disturbances. So the question I'm sitting with is, why aren't these calls being directed to BBB, their call center? And, I've been a resident here for over 10 years, and unless you're civically engaged with the city, community members are completely unaware that block by block exists, despite their best efforts. I have spoken to multiple constituents since I've been appointed and asked if they are aware of them and about their services that they offer, and the answer is consistently no. Community members of West Hollywood have been conditioned to call the sheriffs for literally everything, and that needs to stop. If we could somehow effectively educate and reach the majority of our community members, it could potentially connect more community members to available services within their scope, and essentially improve sheriff's response time to these Part 1, Part 2 crimes, which I know continues to be an issue that arises from public comments. I'm also aware that if we were to effectively accomplish this and redirect these calls to block by block's call center, that the call center will actually need to expand and increase their staff tremendously to handle that influx of calls. However, the proper training and guidance, I foresee this being a really positive impact on the community. Currently, actually, the city of Santa Monica is contracted with block by block and has a dispatch center for a similar reason. And, there are vacant properties in the city there are vacant properties in the city that could potentially handle this expansion as well. So with all that being said, I actually just want to make a motion, and I'm going to state my motion now, but then I also want to open it up to my commissioners, my colleagues, to hear what you have to say as well. And then we can discuss about metrics and ways to, but my motion is this. I would like to recommend that City Council develops an outreach program to educate West Hollywood population to not only make sure that they're aware that Block by Block exists, understands the services that fall within their scope and how to reach them, as well as consider expanding their call center. So with that said, I would love to hear from my fellow commissioners.
I second that, and I tend to agree with Co-Chair Roche. I think if we're wise, we can make very strong recommendations to council of how we can more effectively utilize our block by block security ambassadors. I think there is great potential for growth in this program. And as many of us know, the way some of our laws are written, all situations are not criminal offenses. And there are many things that block by block is equipped and qualified, or situations to handle. And one situation that we've experienced on the east side is it takes a while, if you're calling the sheriffs, for them to get to the east side. Typically, block by block responds a lot faster and can resolve a situation. So I'm in total agreement to this motion.
Okay, hold on, everybody. Before we continue on this, let's bring this first to exactly what the purpose that you're stating it, because you've stated a solution, one of the optional solutions. So to
And
clarify,
Chair-
basically,
Chair Berger, before you start, I'm going to try to share my screen so we could see the chart.
okay,
So as you all talk, let's see if this works. I can type.
oh, very good. We can
Okay.
see it. Okay, so Vice Chair Roche, if we can, before we start with options, can we all agree upon that we would like to, how can we state this? Maximize our resources, maybe to the best, in other words, that use the right tool for the right thing. I think what I hear you saying is the sheriffs are used unnecessarily in certain places. So therefore, maybe the bigger picture is that we want to more effectively use the right resources for the right job. Is that basically, if we can start with that? I know it seems general, but I think it's really smart for us to make these general things, and then we take a vote on that, and then we all agree, and then we'll go with those solutions that you guys you want to present in order to do that. Vice Chair Roche, is that basically what you're saying?
So to accomplish and creating an outreach program, essentially, right, or an educational outreach program, would essentially have to be developed at a later time, because I think that would need to be developed between actually speaking with block by block. So I don't want to jump ahead and hypothetically create, but the solution is to educate the population. So how we go about accomplishing it can look like a lot of different things depending on our resources. You know, that could be in-person marketing, essentially, versus digital, right? Really being boots on the ground, as they say. And because what I'm seeing is that there's a lot of engagement with business owners, but very minimal engagement with residents. So how do we change that? Clearly there's a marketing strategy, but it may not necessarily be what we all assume or associate as marketing. And therefore, that's why I use the word education and educational approach. But again, because of time, because it's almost 4 o'clock now, I want to be careful about how much we dive into the minutia of this as well. So we give other members an opportunity to speak as well. So thank you.
Okay, so I'm hearing two things there. One is the first one was the right tool for the right job, better using our resources like block by block or other. And then the second one was hearing better, maybe we could call it customer service for the residents and those kinds of things. Increase that because they don't really understand.
They don't know. And
they don't know about block by block.
They don't know and they
so
don't
This is
understand.
one. So this is a really broad, bigger picture thing. And I think a lot of your suggestions, everybody's suggestions are going to fall under these. How we can increase outreach to residents and customer service so they're more satisfied, right? So that would be one solution.
Correct. And just to answer data needed to measure its effectiveness, I think would have to go back to looking at the calls and the amount of calls that are now directed to BDB versus going to the sheriff's station. I would then like to see compare the data or the report coming from block by block.
Very good. That's exactly what we were looking for you guys. And the metrics needed would be calls. So we would need to measure the calls. That's exactly how we want to do this. Okay, I don't know who was next. Commissioner Balbone?
So I am supportive of increasing the amount of non-police-based calls and directing them to block by block for livability issues and for, what I'd call minor security concerns. The thing I think we need to also address in this item is not just educating the public about calling a different number. I'd like to tag on that we need to have an expectation that the sheriff will be part of that solution in helping to route the calls effectively. I find that sometimes we hear that that's a challenge for them, but we have a lot of tourists in the city and we have a lot of people. And I'll use an example. If you're walking and someone does what they did to Yola, now she might have been technically safe, but she is startled, she's alone, and she shouldn't have to deal with that kind of thing while she's waiting for a ride to pick her up. She may not call block by block, and that's okay. But what needs to happen is somebody has to respond and they have to respond quickly. So I'd like to tag on that this outreach and education program is extended to also educate the sheriff's department and their dispatch on how to engage other alternatives if they are not able to attend or it's not the level. And that's going to require work, but I think that's appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, do you want to recommend a metric as well, or the data that would be needed to solve it?
I think we have to look at the measures of the calls, as Commissioner Roche has suggested. And I think the other thing that we would want to understand is, the number of calls that they effectively triage to block by block as well. Because, that's one of the things that I've been caught where one's not going to respond and the other isn't referring, and it becomes the citizen's job to reconcile between two orgs. And I think we need to take people out of that. Their job is to feel safe. And our job as the safety commission and the safety net, if you will, of the community between block by block and the sheriff is to figure out how to make them feel safe. And that may mean we've got to talk to each other better. And so the referred calls from the sheriff to block by block and the effective routing of those is kind of a second measure to the measure of call volume going up to block by block. It's the referral between the agencies that I think we could add as a metric.
Okay, staff, did you get that down as a metric? Also, I'm hearing that you are saying that they feel safe, so that they feel safe. That would mean we would need to talk with them, right? The people. Maybe after they had, maybe that would be surveys, I don't know, but various things, a way to measure that they do feel safer as we move along. Anybody have, Commissioner Balbone, do you want to follow up on that, or are you good?
So I think it's a separate item, Tori, but I'm a big supporter of regular surveys of the residents to understand two things: their feeling of safety in the community and how they rate it. And then two, what does safety mean to them? That's what we are here to understand. And we all have a lens, right? Some of our thresholds are different, but I think that's separate from this item because I believe we've heard enough from many citizens to know that they're looking for more ambassador type support. And I think we've also heard that we don't have the right connection to get people connected to the ambassadors effectively. So, but I do agree and would like a second motion that is defining safety from the eyes of the constituents we serve, which may mean a community survey that's conducted regularly that asks them both how they feel about safety, are they feeling safe, and then defines what safety means to them.
Okay, I think you guys keep an eye on what she's writing down to make sure she's writing down what you're talking about. But I think that these metrics, we're on the start of something that we can then measure the effectiveness of whatever solutions that we try and that we recommend to the city council. Commissioner Oliver, I think you were next.
Yeah, I've kind of been writing things down. One is the number of calls for service versus type 1 and type 2 crimes. I did want to mention something that I've been hearing a lot from people in the community, which is like when something serious in their eyes is happening, and they kind of get the sensation that the deputies who respond don't want to feel it would be pointless to do a report, that they do try to dissuade the person who called from filing a report. And that, I mean, it's obviously a bigger issue, and there are many elements to that. So I wonder if that might be reflected in the calls versus reports. And then I definitely think it would be helpful if people understood what block by block can help with versus, what is a crime and requires attention from law enforcement. But perhaps it would be helpful for if we had some sort of card with that basic information that deputies can carry. So when they're called for something that block by block could have diffused without, armed law enforcement, that they hand the person who called who's, probably a resident, if it's something that didn't require law enforcement, I'm assuming people who are visiting would only call the police, not for neighbor disputes, not for, kind of non-criminal things. But hand the person a card, letting them know that, hey, there's this resource next time you have an issue like this. I think that would be a great way to get that information out. And I think that's it for the moment.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner Oliver. So if I'm hearing you right, you wanted to measure the calls versus a report that was taken. And I believe that Commissioner Roman mentioned that too, as they don't do anything was quote unquote. When the sheriffs came to a location, an incident, and he felt as a customer that they didn't do anything. And so we would like to know what that is. Am I hearing you correctly with that?
It'd be a hard one to measure except by anecdote, with people saying things like that. I will say it is not across the board. It's hit and miss sometimes. Like the deputies have gone above and beyond. A neighbor's car, for example, is broken into in the middle of the night, and he woke up in the morning to a police report filled out under his windshield wiper. That was above and beyond. But then I hear people talk about times that they've called, they've been, assaulted, and the deputies, and there are bigger issues here. They say, or take them in, they'll be out by the time I finish the report, is essentially, that clearly the issues are more than just law enforcement. The issues are much bigger and societal. But I think that that's something that we could look at and encourage community members to come and speak on it here at the commission when they feel like a report should have been taken but wasn't.
Okay. So before I go on to the rest of you guys, this first one, unless you have something that we can comment on that you think may change our idea on that, can we vote on that, or have we had discussed enough that we can vote on this and get some tangible outputs now, or do you feel like you want to continue and speaking on that? Go ahead and speak out right now. Otherwise, I'd like to move and check one of these off at a time, if we can, if we're ready enough to vote. Commissioner Soon-Shiong.
Yeah, I mean, my comment relates to the first objective, but also more broadly speaking, I think there is an interesting link between what everyone's been talking about and in general service navigation. So what the referral system looks like. And I think Block by Block is an example of an entity that would further refer people, but I have in mind the fact that City Council recently passed a motion for community-based pretrial services, which would take service referral out of the Sheriff's Department and into a new pretrial services agency that's community-based. And I think that relates to your first question, Chair, around how do we understand the role of this commission and what are new approaches. So I would just like to put that forward as an addition to the outreach regarding BBB.
Okay. I'm not sure. I want to paraphrase what you're saying. Can you?
So the paraphrase would be analysis of what services are available to residents in the city, whether it's mental health resources, et cetera, and how to increase awareness of those services so that residents don't necessarily turn to law enforcement for non-crime calls.
Okay. Okay. Do you have any kind of data or metrics that we would use to make sure to show the effectiveness if we do choose to do that?
So we could
look. Can you think of any?
Yeah, we could look at the number of calls received from the Sheriff's Department for crime and non-crime related requests. We could also loop that into the survey. For example, there's been a lot of discussion around, asking what safety means, but I think what might be effective is also asking residents about their experiences with the Sheriff's Department or with the service provider and their satisfaction after those experiences, and if they have feedback from them, so that the information we receive isn't anecdotal, isn't a couple of residents talking to one commissioner and then or showing up to the meetings, which is really important but not comprehensive, and rather democratizing the ability for all residents to contribute so you can get a fuller picture.
That makes a lot of sense. So basically you're going back onto the customer service, the satisfaction, and you're stating we don't want to just get just a few people replying back. We'd like a better survey that more reflects the population.
Yeah, and I think
and that would be a data metric.
And I think survey is difficult because it's a moment in time. But if there was instead a place where residents could provide feedback, given that interactions with law enforcement or service providers are happening continuously and not in on a planned timeline, they happen after certain events. And so if there was a place where residents knew they could provide comments or feedback based on their experiences or rate their experience with the service provider / law enforcement entity.
And Chair, just a reminder for all, the city does conduct periodic surveys and ask questions regarding safety in multiple places. So we can kind of gather some of those just so you can see what's been done in the past to help guide what you would like to see in the future.
Okay. Before I go to the rest of you, I want to weigh in on this just for a second as well. I mentioned this a long time ago, years ago, that I would like to see something like a customer service that's immediate, where we know exactly how they felt. Like, you know, we all face this all the time, where you'll have a call or a survey right after you get off the phone, if you agree to it. I think that would be more immediate, and it would be exactly hitting that exact target market of the people that are using the service. And so I would just like to put that in as a metric, and then that could be measured by a third party. I prefer having a third parties measure the service and how we're doing as well. So we're all kind of talking about improving customer service, how they feel, did they get really good service, and then capturing their answers somehow. And these are some of the ideas so far about how to go about doing that and measure it, so we can see how effective those services are. Commissioner Balbo.
So there's a common thread that I think is another metric. And I heard Commissioner Roche talk about it. I heard Commissioner Xiang talk about it, and that is getting at data from the department, the police department, right? That says, what are you receiving that doesn't require law enforcement response? And how can we help you by tracking some of that so that we can understand, do you know how to refer? Can we reroute and educate calls? But if we're not capturing it, like we know what percent results in part 1, part 2 crimes, but I don't know that we know where some of those other things go. So I do think that we need to understand their recording of calls at a deeper level, because I think we're all trying a solution for how we get a call center for block by block. I also think we just need to understand, what are they getting in and how are they routing them? And we should have an expectation, because I think we have a good assumption that there are certain calls that are going either unfielded or fielded by the wrong people. And we need to look at those reports to get into that. That's one thought. The second thought is we need to think about the fact that we have officers and sheriffs like Lieutenant Mulder, who pride themselves in the outreach that they do support in the city with the unhoused citizens. And we need to make sure that in balancing the role of sheriffs in a reimagined police force, that we don't completely take away the part of the job that is truly community-based, that they find rewarding, that is above and beyond just the basics of law enforcement. And I want to encourage us to be thoughtful about that. I think that the militarization of the police in the last 20 years has led to a lot of frustration and concern, but there are still many people in law enforcement who went into this job to serve and to help. And I just want to make sure that we don't go so far towards the other side that the only thing they ever show up for and the only connection that they ever have with the community is when someone needs to actually think about drawing a weapon or someone's life is in threat. Yes, that is a large portion of what they're here for, but I think we have to be very thoughtful about making sure that they are part of the community, because community policing starts with that word community. So just a thought, but the first thing is, let's make sure that those, calls, that we start to dig into those and that we get a much greater level of detail coming out of the Sheriff's Department.
Okay, thank you. And I remember Commissioner Hallman mentioned, I think this falls along that line. Basically, what we were asking for with a foot patrol sheriff was something like the New York cop on the corner, where he knew the bagel owner, he knew the different shops. And so, Commissioner Hallman, you might want to speak on that, as far as like another metric could go, is how can we measure those shops? and those businesses feel heard and feel listened to and feel like they are community and they have a relationship with that foot patrol person. For example, this is just another possible option that we can put out there. Commissioner Holman, are you interested in furthering onto that, or?
Well, I think maybe the easiest way of measuring without getting into a lot of statistical data is from actually implementing something and getting something done, up and running, and then seeing the response from businesses and communities. I mean, it's just going to be immediately noticed. Businesses will let you know if they like the change. You know, we'll be able to tell immediately. I just think we need to be a little more proactive as a city. I think we spend a lot of time talking and rehashing and going over the same thing over and over and over. I mean, I think we just need to move on something. And I think if we want to get law enforcement on the streets, then we need to make that recommendation to council, and then that needs to happen. You know, if we want to expand the services by block, then we need to make that recommendation to council, and that needs to happen. But no disrespect to any of my co-commissioners here, but it's 4:15. We have got to get a move on this. You know, this is a special so set for a reason, and I don't feel we're making great progress here.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is you are interested in something that's agile, and that we get on them faster. And I heard Commissioner Oliver say that in our last meeting. We want results, and we want to move on things faster. And you're saying that we want to test them sooner. And
we need to fast track. We need to fast track here.
Fast track. Can you write that down, Kristen? That's another thing that we can vote on. Finding a way to fast track things, implement things faster, and then test them. Because it seems like things take so long to even get anything tried.
So Tori,
I am,
just for clarification, you want an objective that says fast track items?
Something that we can, one of the solutions, kind of an overall solution, would be that we implement things faster, and that gives us the, allows us to be nimble and agile, so that we can, in other words, we don't want to say we want to try the block by block or the foot patrols, and we have to try it for a whole year. We want to say, we want to try some things and measure their effectiveness and be able to pull them if it's not working, or if it is, then we want to be able to see the results faster and be able to adjust. So maybe be able to adjust, implement faster, be able to adjust our resources. Does that pretty much say what you're asking for?
Okay. Somewhat, yes. I just think we need to fast track also our agenda here, and let's make some decisions so we can make these recommendations to council so things can get implemented.
Okay, I hear you. If we're ready to, you other two people ready to comment, can we move on to starting to vote on some of these things, or do you think that you need to add in something that may change? Because we can, if you're going to add something new, we can add that on. But I hear Commissioner Holman that we want to wrap and secure some of these things.
It does. I'll make it quick, but I concur entirely with what Commissioner Holman said. I think if I'm understanding correctly, he's saying we need to not recommend that they move faster. Of course, that's part of it, but that we need to. And I feel this way. It would be nice to be able to study this and have, like, hard numbers, but it's really hard to it's really hard to measure feeling. And what we're hearing is that businesses and residents feel unsafe and don't feel like they are being protected. And I agree that at least from what I understood, Commissioner Hallman saying that maybe we just need to try something and see if that improves how people are feeling, how businesses are feeling, instead of talking ad nauseum and trying to come up with metrics that may be impossible to actually analyze.
Okay, I hear you. Commissioner Soon-Shiong.
Yeah, I think to move forwards with solutions, I think that I'm proposing an objective being a new research partnership for an external entity to analyze public sentiment, also the impact of new pilots, new programs, because oftentimes what we are presented with is, for example, the sheriff's data, which is in summary format, it's a PDF, and that's one side of the story. And they're incredible research partners. We see examples like the People's Budget LA. We see things like $1 Million Hoods at UCLA, VERA Institute. These are organizations that are experts in examining these things. And I think a partnership would be really beneficial to all the things we've been talking about so that we can move forward with original data that isn't biased.
Okay, so you can read on what Kristen wrote there. Is that basically what your summary that you were saying?
Kristen, do you mind scrolling down a little? Yeah. To analyze.
Yeah, please feel free to edit me as you all talk. So I have established a research partnership to analyze data and services.
To analyze, to compare the effectiveness of public safety interventions and understand public sentiment.
So are you suggesting that they may come up with some ways to measure metrics like the feeling of the effectiveness? Is that part of what you're saying there?
Partner would conduct surveys, would analyze the results from those surveys, would gather data from block by block from the sheriff's department, would have the time and capacity to really understand what insights can be drawn from that data.
Okay. Does anybody, you guys with your hands up, do you feel like you need to add on to that, or can we start to vote on some of these things? We'll call on you.
I actually would like to move on to a motion.
Okay, go ahead and make a motion then, and we'll see if we're going to vote on it.
I think
Chair, sorry, Commissioner Balbon, you do have a motion on the floor from Vice Chair Roche.
Okay.
Again, she can choose to withdraw that motion and we can start fresh, but we should either restate what Vice Chair Roche mentioned at the beginning or withdraw that.
Thank you. I would like to restate it and move to vote on it. So I will restate it again. To recommend that City Council develops an outreach program to educate the entire West Hollywood population, to affirm that block by block services exist and how to reach them, and consider expanding their call center.
Do we have a second?
We did. It was Commissioner Holman.
Yes, second.
Okay, let's take a call. Let's take a vote.
Commissioner Balbon.
I don't know how to do this effectively, so I'm gonna try again because I think I tried earlier, but I don't know that I followed the right rules. I'm in full support of that. I would like to ensure that analyzing the sheriff's reporting capabilities on calls that are not part 1, part 2 crimes, and coordinating with the sheriff's department is part of that strategy and expressly stated. And the reason is I do believe people will still call the sheriffs, either 911 or the direct sheriff line, and we need them to be part of the educational and triaging process.
So that would be a friendly amendment, unless, do you accept that friendly amendment, Commissioner Roche, Vice Chair Roche?
I do, but I just want to be clear. You have 4 different line items or 5 different line items. Are we grouping all of this together or are we voting on each line item?
I think we're voting on the first one, which had a motion before the others were developed.
Okay, great. Yes, I accept Commissioner Balbone's amendment.
Okay, staff, can you read that motion and then call a vote?
Sure. Commissioner Hallman, are you still a second?
Yes, second.
Okay, so sorry, Tori, I'm not transcribing exactly what you all are saying because I'm doing 2 computers at once here. So I think Vice Chair Roche should restate her motion for the record since I believe she has it written down. And then we will include Commissioner Balbone's friendly amendment.
Okay, I will restate it for the record. Even though I've said it twice, I just want to make that clear that I don't think it's necessary that I restate it again. We're on 4:30 now. Okay.
So I'm ready to call a roll call.
Yes,
vote.
I would love
Go
that.
ahead and call it.
Yes,
Okay,
thank
so
you.
Chair, is that okay if we go ahead and call the vote?
Yes, yes, call it.
Okay, Commissioner Balbone,
Aye.
Commissioner Chair Berger,
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman,
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver. Robert, I think you're muted.
Aye.
Commissioner Roman,
I believe he dropped off the call.
Vice Chair Roche,
Aye.
Commissioner Soon-Shiong.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Okay, Commissioner Balbone, did you have the follow-up motion?
I have a follow-up motion that I would like to suggest a 2-part satisfaction process. And it may be amended with a 3rd part, but I'll start with the 2 parts. 1, I do think the city needs to conduct a survey of what safety means to our residents and the current temperature of that. And I think that needs to be a broad process. So that's the first part. The second part would be, I also like the idea and think we should have a way in which the people in the community can report and share their experience on the city's website or through the city's social in a way that is solicited on a regular basis and marketed. So one is a snapshot in time, which is a general pulse check, and the other is an ongoing feedback loop. I believe that's a core requirement of running an effective city. I do not think it's a specialized research study. If, however, there is any motion to include researchers to help set this up, I'm cool with that. But I think we need regular surveys and an ongoing feedback process to be established. So that's my motion.
Okay, to clarify, you want a feedback of customer satisfaction in snapshots and also more live. I don't know how to word that. Is that correct? And you,
Yep.
the first.
I would like at least annual survey of where the state of the state on public safety and a measure of it. And then ongoing feedback loop on the satisfaction and experience people have that is posted, that people can post at any time.
Okay, and you had something about the sheriffs or law enforcement at the beginning of that. Was that included?
That's part of the survey. I think we'd have to expressly break out some of the, satisfaction with law enforcement within the annual survey. And the feedback via the website would be for all components of public safety. That's fire, police, block by block, and we may want to also break out any other services tied to the city's responsiveness. So the Met team, we may want to put in there as well.
Okay, so basically it's all of our services. We want snapshots and we want ongoing loops of feedback for customer satisfaction. Can we start with that one? And then we can start after that exacting recommendations?
I was going to second actually her motion.
Okay.
I think we should close. But I think we should close the discussion and ask for a vote sooner than later, if possible.
Staff, can you call the vote? We had a motion and a second.
Yes, and just a reminder, I will pull all the surveys. You know, the city does ask public safety questions in lots of different surveys, lots of different ways. Our last public safety survey was 2016. So I will send all of that information to all of you. And also there's kind of recent surveys that the city's conducting that may be helpful for the commission. That being said, you can take a look at everything, what's been done to help you design what you would like to see in the future. So roll call, Commissioner Balbone.
Aye.
Chair Berger.
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman.
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver.
Aye.
Commissioner Roman has left the meeting. Vice Chair Roche.
Aye.
Commissioner Soon-Shiong.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. The next one that we had was, and I would like to make this motion, it was brought up by several of you, that we want to better distribute our resources to the correct, I'm not sure how to say it, to the correct to the correct person, the needs to better match the different resources that we have. That's going to be broad, but we may send the block by block instead of the sheriff because the sheriff's overkill. Or we may send a MET team or mental health clinician because sheriff's overkill and block by block doesn't know how to do that. So I would like to make a motion to better, I'm not sure to put, I don't want to say it this way, but it's to the right tool, more exacting to the right need with our resources. Maybe somebody can help me word that better.
You could call it a service navigation tool for residents.
Say it again.
A service navigation tool for residents.
However we do it, I would like to say however we get this out to, however we send them out, whether it's through a dispatcher, whether it's through a block by block call center. But I think that we need to better, more exacting use of our resources.
So I'm going to suggest, I completely hear what you're saying, and I agree that we need this. I don't know that it is ours to solve in the meeting, but what I think we're seeing and hearing, and that what we're saying is we believe the city needs to invest time and attention to help us with service navigation. It's a problem. We've seen it. We've heard it. So we need a focused study, and we need staff to make a recommendation to the city council on improving service navigation. And I think that's our recommendation, because I don't think we have to come up with a solution here, although we've heard a lot from the constituents. I mean, candidly, that's what we have people at City Hall to do. So if we are saying we need a study of how our citizens and visitors navigate what we put out there, that's what we're saying. And we just put it forth as a motion that we need better service navigation. So we need a study and a proposal from staff on it.
Can I maybe should have said this earlier or suggested this earlier. Unless there's an objection, like we've already done the discussion on all these items, unless there's an objection, can we kind of make all these recommendations to council as a package rather than discussing each one and then voting on each one individually? Like, would the commission be all right with that?
Well, I think that we need to make exacting motions for specific things. We're just about done.
I think we have several more.
Because, I mean, how would we wrap this up into we want to vote on all of them? I mean,
so I like where Commissioner Oliver is going, and what I'd recommend is, I think we've addressed the first proposal. I think we've addressed the second. When we look at some of the others here, we've said that we need to analyze the services. And I think service navigation, if we want to word service navigation and the services available into one thoughtful response, I think we just consolidate that. because we have these services available. I think what we're saying is, can people navigate them?
Sure.
Okay. The problem I have with that is it's on them. I mean, what if it's a dispatcher that sends them out? That's what I'm looking for, something that no matter what, however we send the people out, we're sending the right people out. That's how I would like to word the motion. If does anybody have a second, then we can just vote on that.
Well, I think that what we're saying, Tori, is that we're all in agreement that it's not working today. I don't know that we can solve it without asking the city staff to say, we believe we offer services that people have a hard time navigating. We need a study of service navigation and a proposal to improve service navigation so that the resources that we put forth can be used. If there are gaps, those should be identified as well. But part of the issue that we are seeing is service navigation in the city is an issue. It's not that we don't have, I mean, maybe we do have the wrong mix of services, but navigating them is a challenge for residents and for visitors. And for our public safety support system as well.
Okay. Commissioner Suncheon.
I think to integrate what you were saying and what Commissioner Balbone is saying, the way that residents navigate what services are available and therefore who they call also relates to how service providers themselves are dispatched or either refer out to other providers. So I think just adding that would help us move forwards.
Okay. I think we're ready to take a vote. I think we all pretty much get what we're talking about. Staff, can you, and to save us time, you hear us, I think. Can we take a vote on that motion?
So again, if the commission agrees, and we can kind of do this by consensus as we move down the chart here, and if anybody disagrees, now would be the time to raise your hand or speak up. But the way I have it right now, as you see, more exacting use of resources was Chair Berger's request. Service navigation was the term that Commissioner Suncheon used and Commissioner Balbone repeated. And then also talking about combining, let me scroll up a bit. So things that are related to customer service, what's available, how to call, is the right resource being deployed, is woven into this, if I'm hearing that correctly.
Yes.
Okay.
Can we just take a consensus? Anybody oppose this? Okay, then we're done with that one. Okay. Are there any others that we've left out that we want to move on and take a vote on or get a consensus on here? I'm not seeing any. Vice Chair Roche.
I would like to move on to the next item, meaning I would like to speak about something else, another service outside of BBB.
Okay. I think we're okay with that. Anybody have, they want to still talk about block by block? Okay, one thing I wanted to say, just put this in there, is talking with Shay and also talking with businesses, the people don't know the limitations of block by block. They think that they're law enforcement, even the businesses. And he says that causes a problem. And I've heard the businesses complain about it. They get mad, and the block by block are like, hey, we have to keep telling them all the same thing. So if there's a way that that can be, I don't know how, but that we can make people more aware. I mean, we can always come up with ideas. It could be something on their shirt. I don't know what, but do you all agree with that? And can we put that, make a consensus on something like that?
Yeah, I mean, that's part of my motion.
Yeah, I agree. I think that'll be covered, Tori, in the motion.
Okay. Okay, go ahead, Vice Chair Roche, and let's move to the next one.
You're muted.
We can't hear you.
I know I'm talking to myself, trying to spare all of you. Okay, so I want to talk about Sheriff's Department. I know that we've all had a lot of feedback. I've had a chance to review the previous meeting as Commissioner, I'm already losing it. As Chair has already mentioned, we've had a chance to watch the entire previous meeting on YouTube. And, you know, I gathered a lot of notes from that, along with public comments from city council meetings and commission meetings. And one thing is abundantly clear, that our current relationship with the Sheriff Department and their services are not meeting the needs of our constituents. So I just want to be clear that I don't believe increasing deputies or patrol is the answer. So just hold on to your seats here. But I really think our city would greatly benefit from having direct oversight and control over our own police departments. I've attended the several civilian oversight committee meetings, and since they were formed, and they are struggling to make desired changes needed over a system that was formed in 1850. So we need a dedicated department who's directly invested in our community members. And right now our deputies are being cycled in and out of our city, moved around to other areas for various reasons. But you know, we're waiting for a report from CPE that we may not get back for a year. And it may or may not actually change the very system we're trying to work within and improve. And I understand that we need to figure out a way to, you know, maintain a certain level of protections, right? Part one crimes, violent crimes, etc. But to Commissioner Hallman's point that he made in our previous meeting, that he does want someone on the beat that knows our names and is familiar with our existence. And I think developing those relationships are absolutely humanizing and requires consistency, which we're not having right now. I've heard the frustrations from Commissioner Roman as well. And, you know, of course, ideally, I would love our officers to be living in the city they work in, which, you know, may or may not be possible. But that level, you know, without that level of investment, their service is either harmful and or ineffective. So I know they have an incredibly challenging job. I don't want to minimize that. But today, I think we need to seriously consider how our city would greatly benefit from having direct oversight and control over our own police department. So I'm just going to start with a motion. I'm going to recommend that City Council begins to develop our own city-led police department. I'm opening it up to the rest of the commission. Thank you.
I think before a motion, we should definitely do discussion. I agree. I would like to see this. I'd like to see the study of it. Like, I'd love to see the numbers. I'd love to see, you know, I've heard things over the years whenever we've talked about a West Hollywood Police Department of, you know, oh, we can't even afford to pay for the helicopters, you know, like that's things like that like, I'd love to see the numbers, the hard numbers on that. And also what resources could be shared. So I would definitely be supportive of researching that, studying it, getting a report on what that looks like.
So to tie this to our bigger goals, you're saying that to keep everybody safe, the option is to change the people, the police that we currently have, with a different group of police or something else. You don't want that, what they do, what our police do, you don't believe that they can do what they're supposed to do, their specialty.
I am saying that there are other cities that have done just this and have seen huge benefits from doing just that, because they are able to specifically target and focus on their population and the needs of their population and create new systems that actually serve the people versus really the challenging relationship we have with this much larger archaic system, which is the sheriff's department. So yes, it is a large goal. It is a long-term goal. It is not a short-term goal, but I think it's a goal that should be considered and start investigating sooner than later.
So
Commissioner Balbone.
I agree with the need to address the gaps that we're seeing in the rotation of officers and the familiarity of officers within the city of West Hollywood. I don't know that I feel that our ability to solve that is limited to having our own force. I will say that the current sheriff is a barrier in a lot of ways. However, our captain and our lieutenant and several of the leaders that have been in the city for a period of time, I see as supportive of where we go. So for me, it's not just either we have all of our own or not. I think for me, I'd like to explore, in addition to city-led police, what changes do we need to ensure that we have a force that is more consistent than the rotational force that we see? And I would actually like to see stats on that, because I haven't. And this is a big enough change when I think of events that we host and other things where it does benefit us greatly to have the support of the county. The fact that our Met team is augmented because we have the county's Met team co-located with our sheriffs intrigues me. And I don't know that I need to throw everything into one solution. I'm in complete agreement that the rotation of people through this community needs to change and that we need a more dedicated force. I just don't know that I'm fully on, let's take that on as a city, or let's figure out a way to work differently within the contracts we have and demand that of the contracts that we have.
Commissioner Hallman.
Thank you, Chair. I would like to second Co-Chair Roche's motion that we explore this, as well as agree with Commissioner Balbone. I think we need to do both. I don't think we should just assume that our current relationship with the Sheriff's Department is our most beneficial relationship. I think we need to explore what's good about it, what's bad about it, as well as explore getting our own independent force. I just don't think we should just assume everything is going well with the Sheriff's Department, because I do love our sheriff. I love our captain, top lieutenants. I have personal relationships with a lot of the deputies, but things could be a lot better. So I think we need to do both here.
Okay, are you saying that you want to explore the existing sheriffs, and if they can do the changes that we're asking, like the right resources to the right people, better to see if they adhere to that or not, and those other, all of the things that we discussed even in our last meeting, and then you wanted to explore replacing them if they can't handle that, or you're
No,
just
I
like,
think we need to do both at the same time. We need to explore our current relationship as well as be progressive and explore our options.
okay, Commissioner Sun-Cheong.
Is it possible to motion to vote on this? Because I also agree. And I think what we're proposing is an exploration of what options are available, given that we all seem to be under the same understanding that the current arrangement with the Sheriff's Department is not sustainable. The Sheriff's Department's a county department and it's currently unaccountable to residents.
Commissioner Oliver?
I agree. I would like to, if we could clarify or amend the motion, just to clarify that it is a study, just so we know what options and what it would entail. Just I think, why wouldn't we want all the information?
Okay.
Okay. Is that the official amendment? I'm happy to, would someone like to clarify the amendment and I can accept it?
Vice Chair, what I have written on the chart is and I probably should say to conduct a study, of maybe the feasibility of developing a city-led police department while working to improve current service from the sheriff.
I accept the amendment. Oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No, I was going to say,
go ahead.
I retract the amendment. I misheard or wasn't paying enough attention. Sorry.
So does that read properly for everyone? I want to make sure I've got this correct. Sorry, Commissioner Roman is joining us, so the pop-up distracted me for a second.
So I think, the only thing that I would say is I think we're asking for a conduct a law enforcement effectiveness study, including two options. One, how do we improve the current LASD contract? But I think the first one is really, what do we do? What are the options for a city-led police force? And they should be ranked that way. But to me, it's a law enforcement study.
And that may be conducted by two different types of research partners, if that makes sense. In the past, the city took a look at that. So there was a firm that came out and said, if you want your own police department, it will cost this. This is how you would get your facility, your stuff, your people. And then also rating customer service and effectiveness is different. So I don't know if you all want to wrap that all together, help me restate it. Happy to do that. The solution may be more than one consultant. We'd have to check on that.
Point of clarification, Kristen. So there has been a study done?
Yes, it was before my time. So I came in 99. So it was sometime in
Lord. Okay.
the early 90s. Yeah, so long time ago.
We're doing this. Okay.
So no, it's not data that would be usable today. My only point in bringing it up is that, it has been looked at. It was an outside firm whose expertise is that specific thing, which is different than gauging customer service or effectiveness. So I just wanted to clarify that there may be somebody out there, we'd have to look, who could look at all of it, but it may be two separate things.
So be it. Yeah. Are there any objections?
I want to weigh in on this. I think that there has been, the problems that I have with the current sheriff is their ability to surge and to adjust the resources. Like Lieutenant Mulder said, we currently use overtime, and we put that out there, but we don't seem to be able to get anybody to accept it, or not that many people to accept it. I like that they're trying to use the trained officers that we have already that have been sensitivity trained and everything, but that I would like a more flexible ability to adjust. That's the first thing. The customer service, I think whoever we put in, if we replace those sheriffs, we're still going to need the same kind of metrics that more match what we're looking for, which is customer service and those other things, instead of the current way that a lot of the things that are measured. So I don't believe that it's going to matter that we just got to say, oh, throw them all out. We just got to get a whole bunch of new people in there. I don't think that argument is if we can work with what we have and specifically address those specific points, and then if they don't adhere to that and make it happen. The other thing is that we have sheriffs going, we have the using of the station. Captain Ramirez and Lieutenant Mulder, you guys didn't hear it, but at the last Chamber of Commerce homeless subcommittee meeting, I was the homeless meeting with the Chamber of Commerce. He got on there and says, I'm all in favor for mental health people or whoever to come in that are more experts in that than we are. So, and Captain Ramirez said that he is open to bringing in various people into the station or whatever to more match exactly what we're looking for. So that's my 2 cents. And I don't think that we need to jump to a great all or nothing. I think that we're still going to need to use the same kind of metrics, exactly who is ever in place of it. So that's my 2 cents. Commissioner Roman, you didn't get in on this, but we just had somebody that was interested in completely replacing or looking into replacing our police force with something else, and that the commission or a department, a public safety department or something would have the oversight. Are you interested in weighing in on that?
No.
Okay. Another point that is, if you remove the checks and balances that we kind of currently have, I guess that the city right now can choose whatever police force they have, but I like a checks and balances kind of system where the police are voted in. Okay, does anybody want to change the motion or discuss further? Commissioner Roman?
So I feel like I'm like in the twilight zone, because until we change our laws, I get the police thing. I'm all for, trying out different things. Commissioner Sun Sheng sent out this document. I don't know if you guys took a look at it, but it was great. It was just like alternates to, if somebody gets busted who's a drug addict, like, let's not throw them in prison. And it's great to want to try out different things and to turn down the volume on the cops that we have, and to bring in other people that could help these individuals, right, that are sick, that are mentally ill. I always categorize it like you have criminals, like straight up criminals who are like, they drive down, a lot of them, from what I know, is they'll come down from like the San Francisco area with like big vans and clippers, and they'll come into our town and they'll steal bikes, they'll steal whatever they can, and they'll take off back up there. These types of people, these are like full criminals, robbers, thieves. What do you do with somebody like that? I think that, you can throw them in jail, and then you can offer them some kind of rehab stuff, right? Then you have like mentally ill people, drug addicts. Back in the day, Giuliani used to literally buy them bus tickets to go to California. And so we have so many of them here. Why? Why are they in California? Not just in LA, all up and down the coast, right? Why are they here? Why are they not in Texas? Why are they not in Colorado? So I think that we need to figure out why they're coming here. The Giuliani buying them free tickets, and it's freezing cold in New York City. Here's a free ticket to go to LA. It's sunny and warm there, and they take care of you over there. So why do we have such an explosion of homeless people, drug people, mentally ill people on our streets? So we've got to like deal with that before we figure out, do we call block by block? Do we call Matt? Do we get rid of the cops? Do we, like, all that is like, that's down the road. The first part is figuring out, what are we going to do with all these people that are here? Like, what, so there can be a mentally ill guy. One came into my store and tried to sell us farm animals, and we told him, to leave the farm animals there. He started throwing them at us. Then he killed one in front of us. Then then he threatened my life because he saw I was calling the cops. Then we called the cops. They didn't do anything to him. They brought him in, they gave him a ticket, they released him. And when I talked to Kusider, who's the detective who I really like, he's like this cool guy who's in town. He told me, he's like Prop 47 and 57. You guys passed this and now we can't do anything to these people. So you could have block by block, you could have the cops, you could have Met, you could have 10 different kinds of things. But if there is a 5150, like somebody deranged who's walking through the streets, and if we're not able to physically take them off the street and figure out which program we're going to put them in, we're going to put them in a kibbutz, we're going to put them here, we're going to put them there, then there's nothing we can do. Like, we have to be able to pass laws where these people just can't go through our streets and do this. Like, so that's what I don't understand, why everybody on here does not understand that we need to first change the laws where they can't do that. And then we can have all kinds of pilot programs and different things where we can put these people. But if you call block by block because there's a 5150, they can't do shit. I do it all the time. They go there, they follow them on the bike, they talk to them, then maybe they'll call the police because they did something, they threw a rock at somebody, the cops come, they don't do anything, and they kind of just shove them off and they keep on walking and they cross the border, which is very easy to do in West Hollywood, and then they just turn around and go back. A guy was throwing bottles and rocks at people and I called the cops. They came quickly, Met called me, they came. They just pushed him out of the city. He walked 1 block and he was out of the city, and they just got back in their cars and drove away. So until we get at the root cause, which is, why are these people coming here? Why is California safe haven? These people are not from California. Why are they coming here? And then, like, what do we do if they're here? Like, where, they don't have an option. They can't continue to walk on the street. They don't want help. 99% of them don't want help. And then they just keep moving. So I always, like, when I hear you guys talking, I'm like, huh? Why aren't you not seeing this side of it? And then we can talk about every pilot program, all that stuff that Commissioner Sunshin, great. Like, it's wonderful. But this is the bigger problem. So I would love to hear from you guys as to, do you agree with me? Do you not? What don't you agree with? What do you agree with? Because that's how I look at this, is there's this bigger problem, which we're not going to do shit about. We're a tiny little city with 5 of us, 6 of us talking here. Like, this needs to come from LA. It needs to come from the governor. It needs to come from a much bigger place. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Commissioner Roman. Maybe we can take that up on the next item. We have a motion on the floor and I think we had a second. I'm not sure. Yeah, I think we had a second. Vice Chair Roche.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Also, thank you, Commissioner Roman, for expressing your frustration. You are not alone. I completely hear how hopeless it sounds like. And I guess what my ask is once we're finished with this motion, I would really ask you to think about what motion you can bring to the table. What would you recommend as a solution that we can all support you in? Is there legislation that you want to support or move, et cetera, that will get behind really tackling this issue? So I just, in this moment of, like, really trying to think more expansively, it's exhausting. I get it. But also I want to really hear if you've come up with anything specifically that you think will really tackle this issue and how we can support you. So I just want to leave you with that. And then when we get to this motion, we can circle back to that item. Thank you.
Okay, let's Commissioner Balbone.
I'd just like to change the words so that we're very specific on what we're looking for from LASD, because to improve current services is a little nebulous. To me, it's about accountability and service consistency. And I think we need to be very specific on what we're looking for.
So are you suggesting a friendly amendment to the motion, or do you want to move that into a separate?
I'm sorry, my screen keeps crashing. So can you guys see me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm just saying that I think the motion stands. The wording was not necessarily part of the motion. The motion was to have a 2-parter, which is look at the feasibility of our own police force in West Hollywood, and also to seek out an improvement plan from the sheriff's department. And to me, it's about improved accountability and service consistency. And I just want to be very specific, because if we just say, hey, improve the service, I don't know that they know what we're looking for.
Vice Chair Roche, is that, do you want to word it that way, or are you, your motion?
Yeah, I think I'm going to accept the motion, because I think I just need more time to sit with it in general. But for now, for the sake of time, it's 5 o'clock. Yes, I accept the amended motion. And I would love to close conversation and ask for a vote.
So just to clarify, can everybody see the wording? I just want to make sure I have it correctly before we take a vote, because this will be the wording I use in the minutes. Happy to edit.
And it was the accountability and service consistency was specifically from the sheriff's department.
So at the end, Commissioner Baldwin, you're saying of the sheriff's department?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, that jumped a page.
And I don't want to backtrack, but could we just put in parentheses or a comma after feasibility, including cost? Because that's something that is important to know, just to make that part clear.
Thank you. That will have a very good, robust, if we do it, if we pass this. So, okay, are we ready to vote? Staff?
Commissioner Balbone.
Aye.
Chair Berger.
Aye.
Commissioner Hallman.
Aye.
Commissioner Oliver.
Aye.
Commissioner Roman.
Aye.
Vice Chair Roche.
Aye.
Commissioner Soon-Shiong.
I, with the friendly amendment of adding to the study not only a city-led police department, but what community-based responses that are alternatives to law enforcement altogether would look like.
We would, let me type it, then you can edit me if I don't get it right, and then we would need to re-vote, actually.
Okay, did we have?
So I think
Sorry.
we're looking for law enforcement specifically in this one, right? And I know that we need to think about what you said, Commissioner Soon-Shiong, but we're trying to figure out, is the law enforcement, which we will need in the city, do we want our own, or do we want the LASD? And I think that's what this one's trying to get at specifically. So I do think it's different than what you said, but I didn't throw the motion, so I apologize. So Commissioner Roche, I just want to make sure we keep it pure.
Yeah, understood. And Commissioner Soon-Shiong, I appreciate that input and insight. And I think we can also circle back to that as well at a later time. But I appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Okay, so did we have enough votes to pass that motion? Because it was on the floor, and are we ready to move on, or do we want to add this friendly amendment and vote again? What's the correct procedure, staff? I think that it's gone through, hasn't it?
So the maker of the motion has said to keep the motion as just regarding the city's own police force or not. And what I've just put in the box below, just so we don't lose Commissioner Soon-Shiong's comments, because I think everybody shares her sentiments, that long-term planning would also include things like MET, behavioral health, public health interventions, things long before law enforcement would be involved, if I'm hearing that correctly. So it's a much, much broader plan long-term to take care of our residents' safety than just the law enforcement piece.
Thank you, Kristen.
Okay, so we're done with that vote, right? Okay.
And again, I'm sorry, my screen is splitting on me, but the motion that you all just voted on that was unanimously approved is to conduct a study to determine the feasibility, including costs, of developing a city-led police department and to seek out an improvement plan to address accountability and service consistency of our current sheriff.
Okay,
And that passed
Okay.
7-0.
okay. Commissioner Roman, you brought up something which was looking at the laws and how as a root cause, and that the laws are the problem, is the root cause. Is that correct? Does anybody want to, is that correct, first of all? Is that what you want to do, is explore these laws?
So when I spoke to Cusitter, who's this detective who's been working in the city forever, he literally said to me in an email, the policies of LA County DA Gaskin, coupled with propositions 47 and 57, and the governor releasing 80,000 inmates from prison, does not bode well for public safety. This is the reason why suspect Reyna, the guy who's throwing dead animals at us, was released the next morning. That's literally what he said. So maybe we look at what is Prop 47 and 57. Those 80,000 people are already out. They're not going to go catch them and put them back in. So too late on that one. But Prop 47 and 57, what is that? And what is our laws with, you know, people that are homeless, that are causing trouble? Like, what are our laws? What can we do? Like, obviously, you know, we want to be humane. We want to do all these things. Like, I let some of them sleep in the back of my store. They're cool people. They're not like, you know, stealing or doing anything. They just honestly need a place to sleep. So we let them sleep there. But there are the other ones. And what do we do with those people? If they're 5150s, like, what is the rule? Like, what is the current law? And how do we change that where we're being humane, but like, I'm a dad. If that was my kid on the street, you know, out of his mind, I would want somebody to grab him off the street and get him help. I'm a single dad. He has no mom. So if God forbid something happened to me, my kid wound up on the street like that, I would not want somebody saying, no, he has rights to be free and he should be able to walk and he should be. No, I'd want somebody to grab him, handcuff him if they have to, and get him the help that he needs. And so I don't know what our laws are with that. I know the ACLU sues anybody if they go near a homeless person. And so, like, we need to look at those laws and they might need some fine tuning. So 47, 57, those props. And then, like, what are just like the laws? Like, why were they able to clean up Venice Beach? I was just there. Everybody's gone. They used to have, like, it was a nightmare down there. So what do they do at the Veterans Hospital in Brentwood?
Give a time, like, we are 19 minutes from the end of the time allotted. We were looking for possible things to recommend to council, and then yeah, we're spending a lot of time without coming up with some recommendations.
Okay, hold on a second. Commissioner Oliver, that's sort of my job to do that. So I hear what you're saying,
but it's not happening. I'm sorry, but it's not happening.
We're looking at the time. I'm the chair. I'm conducting this, and I wanted to hear. I think we all wanted to hear Commissioner Roman. And if we have to go on further, we will. But we're trying to get this and get some results. So let's stay on topic. Commissioner Balbon.
So we had a member of the public come and speak, Lee Booth, and what Lee Booth talked about is open drug use, particularly open group drug use. And I think we've heard Danny talk about Proposition 47 and Proposition 57. And to me, I do think that we need to partner with the sheriff and anyone who wants to help me refine this, but we need to examine the root cause of either the laws that prohibit us from getting help for some of the folks, and or mandating, and I'm just going to say it because I don't think drug use, open drug use on the street by unhoused people is acceptable. There's a certain amount of social responsibility we all have, and that's not social responsibility in my mind. So there's something here about, can we can we ask for a study on what Lee Booth brought and what Prop 47 and Prop 57? I'm not familiar with them, so I would need to read up, but what is leading to some of the repeat criminality that we're seeing?
Okay. Actually, I tried to get some information on this before our meeting, and they couldn't look this up to look at all of the different laws. And because I've been hearing this for 7 years about it's Prop 47, Prop 57, AB 109, it's all of these different reasons why the sheriffs cannot do what we're asking them to do. And so we wanted to get some data and really look into those things and say, okay, that's what you guys are saying. Do you have any data that shows, did those propositions have some unintended results? And are they partly the cause of what's happening now? So if you guys want to discuss that further, or if Commissioner Roman wants to make that a motion of some sort, are you guys ready to vote on it? Or are you ready to want to talk a little bit more on it? Commissioner Holman.
I'd like to make a very strong suggestion here. First of all, I completely agree with Commissioner Roman about the different propositions and some of the issues that have resulted since they've been voted in. With that being said, I would like for us to stay on task, because we do have to make recommendations to council for the meeting on the 15th. And if Commissioner Roman would like to suggest an agenda item to discuss this at an upcoming meeting, I think that's how we should handle this.
Commissioner Oliver.
Yeah, and I apologize, Commissioner Roman. I did not mean to cut you off on the topic itself. I agree. I just think that the point of the special meeting was to come up with recommendations. Propositions, I understand, would require propositions to overturn. So we're not going to solve that in this meeting, but we can discuss that further to make recommendations or to gather information and look at impacts at our next meeting and ongoing meetings. So I apologize for cutting you off earlier. I didn't mean to.
No, that's okay. You mean well.
Chair,
We
if
all
I
know
may, I could kind of quickly summarize the recommendations I've got so far that will be put in the council staff report, because I too have a pretty hard out at 5:30 today. So we have, sorry if I'm making you dizzy as I scroll, a recommendation to create an outreach program regarding block by block services and rerouting non-criminal calls from sheriff to block by block. So we as staff will probably need a little bit of time to see if there's money involved, but certainly we can use the city social and that type of stuff. So we can make a quick recommendation to council. And then you as a commission can obviously, as we analyze the calls and take a look at what that looks like, I think we'll have more to that recommendation later. You all spoke in support of conducting surveys. And again, the city has done, even during the pandemic, a few surveys. They've included questions on safety. So I will dig up what we have currently. Some of that might be woven into the council meeting on November 15th, because I know some staff were already pulling some of that information and working with our survey consultant that we use quite a bit. So I will include that note in. You all spoke about using the right tool for the right job, more exacting use of resources, service navigation. How do we improve that, whether it's the city's app or the dispatcher or all of the above? So that recommendation will be in there. So there's 3. The 4th is the feasibility study on creating a police department for West Hollywood, which long-term would include other non-sworn resources, and also an improvement plan to address accountability and service consistency of the sheriff's station. I would recommend putting changing kind of the state legislation. We could put that on a future agenda, do a little research for you and have some background, and you could discuss that another time. The 2 things that you all haven't weighed in on yet, and I I think you could do it quickly because knowing you all, I think I know where you are, but to do it formally is just, you know, how you feel about the city exploring the behavioral health crisis unit. And then also MET, like those two things, if we could put, you know, Public Safety Commission is opposed to or in support of continuing to explore behavioral health crisis unit, and then whatever your comment would be on MET. And it is okay if you all 7 of you don't think the same thing. We can definitely share, you know, kind of what those thoughts are from the group.
Okay, so let's first wrap this together with Commissioner Romans. Do you all a consensus agree into examining existing laws effectiveness? Anybody oppose that?
Well, we're going to add it to an agenda item, correct?
Yes, I think
Okay,
we
great.
said it was going to be a go forward, but not as part of the city plan recommendation to be discussed on
great.
our agenda.
Okay. And then secondly, let's weigh in. Do we all agree with the current MET? Do we like what we currently have with MET? And the city has actually been discussing expanding MET with another team. Do we want to all, does anybody oppose that?
I do.
Okay, so you oppose the MET teams?
No, I mean, I would like to speak. So as far as the MET, I reviewed the prior fiscal year report, and I'm not going to go into it because we don't have time, but at this time, until I see the 2021 report, I don't feel comfortable adding an additional team. I want to see how we actually did with our dedicated team since they pulled out the county unit in spring of this year. I think it'll be telling to see how much was served, how effective they were this year versus using 2 teams in the prior fiscal year. With that being said, I'm going to just jump right to behavioral health crisis. I love the idea of this proposal. I looked into it in depth. I think it will absolutely pull together all the pieces, this kind of matrix of services that we're kind of navigating at this time, as Commissioner Belbone has spoke to this entire meeting. I think it will be an incredible way to integrate all the pieces that we are still pulling together and creating a really solid infrastructure. And I think it'll be really, it'll be absolutely also assist in what Commissioner Roman was saying as well. So I think it achieves several issues that we are constantly addressing in this commission. So that's my piece.
Okay, so we didn't have, so on the MET.
Oh, with the MET, I just want to stick with the one until I see the report from 2021 and then decide. That's where I'm at.
Okay, consensus, does everybody like the current MET? Say nobody's opposed, so the consensus is we do. Does anybody want to follow the opinion of Commissioner Roche that you want to look at the current effectiveness of the current team?
I second that.
Okay, consensus on that?
So we're saying keep resources stable and review the next report, annual report, 2021 report, right? That's what we're agreeing to. I'm just trying to be clear. That's all. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. You're absolutely correct, Commissioner Belbone.
Okay.
Okay.
And we've got a second. The one dedicated. Yes.
So let's, are we good to vote?
Yeah, we want to, let's just say, does anybody oppose that? Okay, that's a consensus to that. The next one is the Behavioral Health Crisis Unit. Anybody else want to weigh in on the Behavioral Crisis Unit?
So
I do. Go ahead, Commissioner.
So the one thing that I was going to say is, as Commissioner Roche has pointed out, or I should say Vice Chair Roche has pointed out, my constant concern is the connectivity between the activities and just making sure that as we explore this, that it doesn't just become another service on top of the other services, that it's an integrated plan, and that needs to be part of the exploration. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, I have been following this a lot as well, and with the county, their theory, in my opinion, is really good. The problems that they have right now, there's a lot of them. The receiving centers, that's a hard, you know, that's, we don't have receiving centers. We don't have the clinicians. That's a problem. The Department of Mental Health can't get the clinicians because they volunteer. We can't even get the clinicians to go out with our current MET team in the night because nobody wants to volunteer for those. The places to take them, we need double the amount of facilities, not just the receiving centers, but we don't have the beds. We need double the amount of beds. So I would like to suggest something that we are currently working on, our behavioral health unit, simultaneously, but I would like to suggest something that is more nimble, that is more, that we can put into place, because we're delving into something that's moving, that nobody's really been having some successes with. Well, they have with the RI International for the county, and this could take the county a long time. But I think that West Hollywood, we can customize. And I think that if we did something where we brought in a team, had some experts right there, and emulate that whole system out of the Sheriff's Department, which Captain Ramirez said he would make space for something like that, then we can rotate, iterate through it, and find out all of the problems that we don't know what they are and what works and what doesn't work. And that it would include drug addiction, the mental health, and all of those things. The transport vans pilot is just getting started in LA City. They're the therapeutic transport vans. Personally, I like all of those things. I really like those, but I think that we can do something faster. And I think that we can iterate into sort of, I call it a sandbox, where you try things and you see how they go and you have experts there. That's my 2 cents. I really would like them to explore that possibility, getting maybe some of those experts from the county to come in if they want to, because they are trying to anticipate all of these things, and it's bulky. I would like to see something move that's more agile and adjustable, that we can measure the results sooner.
Do you have a motion?
Anybody else want to weigh in on that? Commissioner Balbon?
And again, I will say the specifics of the behavioral health crisis unit, I mean, they're still coming. You know, they have another update November 15th. I think what I'm looking for tonight is just, you know, is the commission generally supportive of the exploration of this team? And as you know, obviously they've come to the commission to give you all presentations. They're going to continue to do that and get your feedback as they move forward.
Commissioner Balbon?
I was good with that. And I think, you know, integration into the existing services, and then, you know, continued focus on root causes, like whether or not we've got enough beds, all reasonable. So I'm with you, but I want to look towards them, Tori, to help us, because they're the solution. And I think we can put whatever pressure we need to on them as they uncover what they see, to add more nimble services around it. So I'm good to support this, and I'd say let's vote, because we've got 3 minutes left.
And we still have public comment if we have any speakers.
Okay, does everybody, anybody oppose moving forward with the behavioral health unit? No, okay. Should we move with public comment on this, guys? We've gone through a lot. Are there any public comments?
Oh, I meant public comment later in the agenda. We've already done public comment on this item, haven't we?
Okay. Okay. I think we're The only other thing that I think that we could address really quickly, because we've had this come up several times, is the sheriff's substation. I just even recently, a bunch of different residents have been asking about that. Are you all opposed or exploring that possibility further? Anybody opposed to exploring the possibility of the sheriff's substation on the east side? Okay, that's a consensus. Then we're further want to explore the sheriff's substation on the east side.
So I think
Kristen.
what we want to make sure we see from that is, can that be looped into the accountability program? Because that's been requested from the sheriffs. And I think, you know, if we're talking about potentially replacing them, I don't know that we're going to be asking them to do more services. So it be looped into that, in my opinion.
Okay, Kristen, do you have that?
I do.
Anybody?
It competes with your earlier recommendation, though. I'll be very honest.
Yeah.
Okay. So I guess we will leave that until the first recommendation to see what they think. And I guess, you know, you can note that if they are interested to continue with that, with the sheriffs as is, then that we kind of were interested in further exploring that. Okay. Anybody oppose that? Okay, let's go. Let's move forward. We're about done, guys. I think we've gone through a lot. Should we move on to and then if anybody doesn't have any other requests, we'll move on to public comment. Anybody? Okay. Let's go on to the next agenda item. It's
And
work
Chair,
plan.
you'll have to defer the work plan liaison discussion for Monday. And we have it on Monday's agenda already, kind of in anticipation of that need.
Okay, public comments. Do we have any public comment? No?
I don't have any additional. I do see Kimberly Copeland in the meeting. If you'd like to raise your hand, if you'd like to speak. Other than that, I think we're wrapped, Chair.
Okay, then we're going to items from commissioner comments. Okay, I just want to, Vice Chair Roche.
Hi, I just want to thank everyone for this evening or today, what time, this afternoon, Lord help me. I'm really grateful that we all were able to get through this. It only just proves that we can work together, and we will continue to strive to do better in terms of facilitating in future meetings. So thank you again. I hope everyone has a lovely evening.
Okay, I want to thank everybody. I want to particularly thank Vice Chair Roche. Behind the scenes, you guys have no idea the amount of work that she did to help put all of these reports and everything together. So thank you, Vice Chair Roche. You did an excellent job, as you always seem to do. And all of you guys, the different contributions that you made, Commissioner Soon Xiong, that was a great document. We want to get that put, we're trying to get that put into the public record as well, so all the public can see it. And Commissioner Balbon about the metrics. If y'all haven't read that, it's really, really good, I think. I think that we've gotten something. We're trying to change basically the framework that we're working within to get results and to make things on paper. And I think we got some of that. We're gonna get it better. But we usually don't get tangible results like this. So I think that we can continue this unless you email me if you have ways to improve it. Other than that, I think that it was a really productive meeting. Can we get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Balbon, seconded by Commissioner Oliver. Roll call. I guess it's a roll call.
You don't need a roll call, Chair. You're good.
Okay. Okay. Thank you all.
Have a good
Thanks,
weekend,
everybody.
everyone.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend.
Thank you, guys. Good night.